You're listening to the Savoir Faire Audio Experience.
Are you ready?
The Savoir Faire Experience is your guide to everything that has to do with lifestyle. From dating, rides, style, and entertainment. All brought to you by the editor of Savoir Faire magazine, Robert White. Anything goes on this audio experience. So, let's go.
It's still the best.
All right, guys, welcome to another episode of the Savoir Faire Audio Experience. Thank you guys for listening, sharing, caring. Definitely appreciate all of the love. Today is another great interview. This time, we're going to talk about the later part of life and financing. So I'm really excited about this interview. Nancy Hite is here. How are you, Nancy?
I'm doing great this morning. Thank you.
Yeah, glad to hear. We were chatting a little bit about the New York and Florida kind of differences in weather earlier, so I definitely appreciate that. Nancy, you have a company called the Strategic Wealth Advisor, and I definitely want to talk to you a little bit about that, but I want to go back into your story a little bit and just learn a little bit more, because obviously finance and strategy wealth and advising and these things, these are kind of skills that I think people develop later in life. So I'm really interested in who you were when you were younger, your college years and things like that. Were you always financially responsible, and did you really focus on finance even from a young age?
I would have to say I've always, just personally, even as a kid, was financially responsible. I always liked helping people. And in those days when I was in college, I took up education and actually did some teaching in the schools in Massachusetts. And in those days, it may still be true, I had to join the union. And once I got elected and accepted by the union, I wasn't happy with their rules. There were certain regulations that got under my skin and things that they were going to do. So at that point, I decided to go back to school, get all my credentials in the financial area. And at this point, I've got more credentials and letters in my name, I'm embarrassed to say. But I do like learning, and I'm constantly doing that. So there's always changes in the financial area.
Yeah, I completely understand. So as a kid, I'm just really curious, like, did you make a lot of mistakes in your financing when you were young? Like, what made you focus so much on finance for yourself and then obviously now for other people?
Well, I think it was a matter of taking the courses. I really didn't know enough about money except how to make a little bit. As a kid, I worked in different odd jobs that we do around our home area. And then I started spending, and I realized I didn't have enough. And why didn't I have enough? So I said, I've got to find out why. It's almost like I feel about AI now in the new changes in technology. I'm not as confident in that area as I'd like to be, and I can see in order to exist today, I'm going to have to go back and take some courses to be at least somewhat informed and how to use the AI system and so forth. So it's just part of the part of my, I guess, my desire for learning new things in education.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, you dabbled a little bit on the question there. So, like, when you were younger, obviously, you just wanted to make sure you didn't run out of money, right? And that's how we all kind of feel about getting older in life. But like, who do you kind of attribute like your financial skills to? Did your mom and dad like literally talk to you about financing and investing and doing the right things for your own life, or did you kind of learn those things on your own?
No, actually, my dad died when I was like 12 years old, and actually he probably had a lot more influence just on my financial education, so to speak. My mom always that never seemed to be an issue for her and her family, and she was one that didn't have a financial issue. So I'm not quite sure, Robert, how I got involved with this, but I just love what I do. I don't really plan on stopping work. So I just love helping people and making sure that they're comfortable financially.
Yeah, that makes sense. The Strategic Wealth Advisor is your business. And I was on your website earlier before we connected, and I saw a very specific topic about retirement planning. And I wanted to dive into this and challenge you a little bit, because I know the answer is going to vary just a little bit for each person that you speak to about retirement planning based on their finances, but maybe we can do this by age gap. And so I'm really curious about this. If you were in a room with, let's say, 4 other people, okay, and there's a 20-year-old, a 30-year-old, a 40-year-old, and a 50-year-old. We're just going to make it nice and simple. Can you tell me a little bit about how the strategy for retirement planning would be different based on each age group?
Well, that's an interesting question. It isn't as different as you might think, Robert. Basically, the issue about retirement, we're in the 21st century. So I view retirement a lot different than other advisors might do. I want to make sure we're living longer now due to improvements in medical experiences. I mean, we might be in a walker or a wheelchair or even being kept alive on a machine, but we don't die from those things today. So the issue becomes, how do we pay for and have enough money for the 30? Some of us are going to live to 100. When I was growing up, age 65 was considered to be old age. In the 21st century, age 65 is middle age. Thinking that you're going to die before you're 80 years old is not what people think about. They think about living a long life and having a wonderful, if they're going to have retirement. Actually, in this generation, retirement is not as common a process that people are going to have because of the fact that we need much more money. When I was a kid, my dad, he started a television business, and if he made $40,000 a year in his best year, that would have been a fortune. All right. Mm-hmm. With that, he and my mom owned a home in a nice neighborhood in Massachusetts. My mother never worked outside the home. They raised 2 children, and they went on vacation for a couple of weeks a year every year. Today, $40,000, if you did that, you never could buy a home. If you had 2 people, they both would have to be working outside the home. So the whole world financially is different, and inflation has taken a tremendous toll on our financial situation, and it will probably continue to do that. So we have to think a little differently.
Yes, you
for
think
financial
that
issues.
You think that someone that's 20 years old and someone that's 50 would actually have the same retirement planning, even though, assuming they had no income, right? I know a 20-something out of college can start putting money away and prepare for the next 35, 40, 50 years of work life to be able to build up a nest egg potentially that could help them in retirement. But a 50-year-old that's kind of running into the same status, that would be a little bit different because their time to kind of gain if they want to retire at 63 or 64 would be a little bit less, right? So the strategies would be different, I assume, right?
Well, let me say this. A 20-year-old, when I was 20, the last thing I was thinking about was retirement. I was thinking about the next phase. How am I going to save enough money? How am I going to work enough so that I can have enough money to take the next trip or if I needed 4 tires on my car? I think we need to be a little more realistic. People, as I said, thinking about retirement, we need to realize that we're going to be living much longer. Even thinking of retiring at age 65 financially is not realistic in today's world. Let's put it that way. Okay. You've got to, and nobody's thinking about retirement, Robert, in their 20s, 30s, or 40s. If they're married and they have children, they're raising their children. They're thinking about the kids going to extended school, the bills up the gazoo. I mean, their main focus is how am I going to handle every day. We see what's going on with the government being closed down. We got people in the military and in air traffic controllers that aren't being paid. Matter of fact, I've just offered my services free for any of those people that are affected by the shutdown in the government or the air traffic to contact me to get some free advice on financial issues.
I love that. Yeah, that's really sweet of you, honestly, Nancy. That's really cool. So we have to let people.
We need to help each other. I think as Americans, we like the idea of helping each other. we sometimes just get so tied up in our own world that we just don't, open the next door, so to speak, and see what can we do to make someone else's life a little bit better. If I put a note on LinkedIn and I told them they can either send me a direct message on LinkedIn or they can email me at nhite@strategicwealthadvisor.com, which is what any of your listeners or readers in your magazine, if they hear anything they like, can contact me. There's no charge to talk to me. And you and I like to talk, so we're doing this. We're doing this all the time, all the time, and so So I mean, I don't think it's realistic to think about retirement in age. I don't know any 20-year-old, and I work with a lot of grandparents, parents, and then the children. Yeah. Matter of fact, many times parents and the grandparents will set up trust accounts for their grandkids or their kids, and then when the kids reach 18, they're adults, and if they're financially astute in any way, they may give that account to their kids because it was a trust for them anyway. And then I end up working with the younger generation. So I do a lot with that. Wealthy people, of course, are saving, let's say, in their 50s. Depending on where they are, they might be doing a backdoor Roth IRA, which is only available for people that have high salaries because there's a limit on how much money you can put into your IRA if you're in a high income. So the government or the senators and congressmen years ago set up this process, Robert, where if you have a high salary, you can overcome that issue by contributing to what they call a backdoor Roth IRA. It's been around for many years, and it requires certain IRS forms to be filled out. And for those high-income people, I usually work also with their CPAs, because if it isn't done properly, you can have a lot of income taxes, which we don't want them to have, by doing it incorrectly. So that was one of the reasons, Robert, why I wrote the letter to President Trump and to Scott Bessent and a couple of congressmen talking about Roth accounts in the retirement accounts. Right now, the wealthy have a way to get around the system and can get into a Roth IRA, but they call it a backdoor for them. But the average retirement employee, and they're talking about whether it's a 20-year-old or a 50-year-old, if they're working for a company, their 401k or 403b or 457 plan or pension, they're not required to have Roth options for the employee. And as a result of that, all the money is going into the regular retirement account. Now, as I talk with clients, I tell them, I ask them, is the IRS your favorite charity? And of course, they all giggle and say, of course not. I say, well, the regular retirement account, you're going to be paying taxes on the money as it grows and comes out. Matter of fact, I feel so strongly about it. I developed a phrase that I had to trademark: pay the taxes on the seeds, not on the harvest. Meaning, I would like you to pay the taxes while you've got some deductions, and you might have a mortgage, you might have business expenses, and so your tax bracket will be much lower than it will be when you're retired. A lot of people tell employees or other people, or you read that when you're retired, your tax bracket will be less. Well, unfortunately, that's not the case. I have many clients that when they're working, they're, let's say, in the 10 or 12% bracket because of their deductions. And then because they have a regular retirement account, they're forced to take out the money at a certain age. Instead of being in the 10 or 12%, it moves them into the 20% tax bracket because they've got to pay taxes on the required distributions. Now, I can't keep Congress from wasting our money, and most people think that no matter what side of the political fence you're on, the Congress wastes our money. I can't force Congress to do certain things that I might like, but I can control how much money I give them by paying the taxes earlier, let's say on a Roth option, if that was available, rather than waiting and giving them all the money at the end. Matter of fact, Robert, there's a new rule starting on January 2026. Those people that are trying to do a catch-up on their 401, on their retirement plans, whether it be a 401k or an IRA, the money that they put into the catch-up can no longer go into the regular retirement account. It has to go to a Roth account, which means they're going to have to pay taxes on the money. Now, in the letter I wrote to the president, I talked about the need to equalize the retirement plans, not just for the wealthy with the backdoor Roth, but also for the regular employees, to give them an option of paying the taxes early. And it would also reduce the deficit on a continual basis, because the money that people pay on their Roth accounts, which is an account where you're saving money, you pay the taxes first, it grows tax deferred, and when you take it out, it's tax free. Did you hear that? Tax free. Is there anyone who doesn't like tax free money? Right. I doubt it. Okay. So this, I said to the president, and Bessett, who's the Treasury Secretary, I said, look, the Treasury will always have money to help reduce the deficit. There would be billions of dollars going into the Treasury that people have wanted to pay because they're paying the taxes early. I said, we won't have, I can't say we'll never have a deficit like we have now, because, you can always charge it up on your credit cards as a human being, and that's what's happened with us as a country. But the money would always be there, and it would be coming in. I think people, they could take, let's say you have a matching scenario, talk about retirement. So you're putting so much money in, and your employer is giving you 3 or 4%. You could take the 3 or 4%, throw it in the Roth option in the retirement account, and have the regular account for something else. So you could have both. It's not a requirement, but I wanted Congress to pass a law requiring all retirement plans, whether it be Fidelity, Vanguard, Nationwide, doesn't matter who's running it, just to have not just a regular, but a Roth option for the employee, to give him a chance to pay the taxes on the seeds, not on the harvest. And so when we talk about retirement, I'm thinking if you're a 20-year-old and you can pay a little bit of taxes now without putting you in a new tax bracket, that money would be great for future retirement. Matter of fact, in a Roth, they have better options available. You could, let's say you're going to buy your first house and you need the down payment and you're not 59 and a half. You could borrow the money from the Roth account without any penalty and use it as a down payment on the house. I mean, you can't do that in a regular retirement account.
Yeah.
If you're not 59 and a half, they penalize you. So but most of the companies that set up retirement plans in companies do not spend any time talking about a Roth. They're not required to. They could care less whether you have the Roth account or you have the regular. It's like owning an automobile and going into a tire store. They don't care whether you're driving a Mercedes or a Volkswagen. As long as you buy 4 tires from them, they're happy campers.
Yeah.
That's basically,
makes sense.
That's basically what happens with retirement plans. The companies running them, they don't care what kind of account you have. They make their money if your employer has an account with them, period.
Yeah, it makes sense.
In that.
No, I love it. Thank you so much for dropping all that knowledge. That's really amazing. And I'm glad that you're kind of actively pursuing this by writing letters to, the politicians and the president and just trying to make moves for this stuff. So I applaud you for that. I mean, everything you said makes total sense to me, especially a person in my age group. I'm in the mid 40s right now, and I am starting to think about, the next half of life and is there going to be money and funds? And so listening to you kind of talk about some of those things that employers are even doing just makes me really analyze that, like, those are things I have to start focusing on for sure, to kind of get prep myself for that. But again, I also heard you say something about like, we're living longer, so retirement age at 63 is just not normal for most people. That's something else that I always think about. I think officially, like from business, it would be really excellent to retire at 55. And I know it's a young age, but the next 10 years of really hard work to prep myself for that. But I never think you officially retire. I think even if you own a business like you do and like I do, you always have to keep your hands moving and always have to keep your brain working. And that's just part of living a really good life, right? Even after the fact. So even if I slowed down and said I'm officially retiring at 55 years old and that was a dream that actually happened, I don't think I'd ever stop working. It would just be a different kind of work, right? So I wanted to ask you a little bit about that part too, because Strategic Wealth Advisors is your company. You obviously do a lot of advisory situations with a lot of people in finance, and you just gave us a little testament to your knowledge, which is great. But talk to me about getting this business off the ground. I'm always interested in the entrepreneurial kind of story of people, especially in this category. So when you first got this going, can you kind of reminisce a little bit with me about some of the struggles you had to, do marketing, get your name out there? Were you already a name in this industry? So was it easy transition to be self-employed?
No, well, actually, it was a difficult decision to be self-employed. The natural tendency is to go to work for a large company and just be one of the advisors. But I had different thinking. In those days when I started, it wasn't just about talking to people about money. And when we think about retirement, I want to look at, are they really ready for retirement? Besides having enough money, are they psychologically ready? Have they kept up with their hobbies? How are they going to fill in their time? And as you said, even a person who wants to retire at 55, I do more than just numbers and spreadsheets. I do much more holistic planning. I get to know them. The clients become my family. I talk to them about their hobbies. Matter of fact, I tell parents, encourage your children to have hobbies, so that as they grow up, they may not make any money in their hobbies as they're young because they're having fun, enjoying them. But as they start to retire, they may be able to talk to other people about their hobbies, teach their hobbies, be mentors for their hobbies. We need to make sure that people keep their minds occupied. And if they don't need the money, do they want to contribute to charity? Do they want to work in a local hospital? Have they kept up with their friends and their social network? Are they physically active? We need to assess not only their investments to bring income in for them, but are their investments diversified? I've had one of my first clients was a couple that they were very nervous about retirement. He was 64 years old, and he was thinking about retiring. And his question was, am I going to have, and they were nervous about it, and they said, am I going to have enough money to retire? And will I run out of money before I run out of time? Well, I looked at their portfolio, and he had worked for IBM for many years, so like 30 years. So his portfolio was loaded with IBM stock. There was nothing else there. Everything was in the stock market. There was no diversification. He had no bonds. He had nothing bringing in any income. So after talking, and of course, he was very nervous about selling any of the IBM stock. And I said, look, now that you're going to be retired, we can certainly keep some IBM stock, but we've got to be diversified. I've got to put you, for your own sake and your own security, I've got to put you in some quality bond funds, mutual funds, quality stocks. And I said, this about 15, 20 years ago, and I set them up with an investment account. They agreed to go along with it. 15 or 18 years later, I'm still working with them. They'll never run out of money. The accounts I set up were earning about 5% at that time. And in the last couple of years, I even put them in some exchange traded funds, ETFs. And he's busy doing a lot of volunteer work, and she's doing the same thing. And they are happy campers compared to many of their other friends that are retired that just because they're not clients of mine, nobody talks to them about keeping their mind active so they don't get dementia, they don't have Alzheimer's, and it's not just the money. You've got to be psychologically ready for retirement. Now, you and I, we seem to love what we do, so we'll probably never fully retire.
Right.
We just like the idea of we're happy with what we're doing. Yes, are we tired? Is it a lot of work? Sure. But it's always interesting and different. Talking to different people, seeing what their issues are, whether they're 55 or 20. You know, the main thing I tell people at the beginning, if they really want to be financially secure, they have to work with a certified financial planner. It's like if you're ill, you don't want to go on the internet and find out what's wrong with you. You want to have a medical doctor. Well, the certified financial planner is your financial doctor. And I'm also a fiduciary, which means that I have to do what's in the best interest of the client. Working with an insurance person, all they're able to do, and it's not their fault, it's just their requirements and their credentials. They don't have any compliance. They can sell you any product they want, insurance policy or annuity, and that's all. They don't have any other requirements, and they're not required to do anything else. They're a salesperson. Yeah. If you're looking for long-time financial stability, it's much less expensive to work with somebody who's qualified and working for your best interest. And that's really what a CFP, and especially in my case, being a fiduciary, I'm required to do that. Even in a court of law, I'd have to support that I recommended, let's say, this diversification, because everything was in the stock market, which is very volatile, and it wasn't as secure as it could be. Now, Robert, everybody has different risk tolerances, and this is the other thing, and security needs. And these are the other things that when you're talking about cutting down for work, working part-time, or being totally retired, I have to take a look at. Some people are more agreeable to having more risk. In that case, I might put more of their money into the stock market. Other people, and at the same time, there are other people that are much more risk adverse. The security is their most important thing. Somebody in their family or a friend went bankrupt, ran out of money, was living on the street. They had different experiences, and their main concern is that can't happen to me.
Yeah.
And as a result of that, so I look at each person differently. I want to find out what is important to them. It's not about what's important to Nancy. It's about what's important to them. And age plays a role in it as far as how long you have to put money in an account for savings, as I said, whether it's for a vacation, a new automobile, or you're thinking of retirement. But as you've probably seen from my book, the Retirement Mirage, it is a mirage in the 21st century. It's not going to be, and we hope not, really, the lifestyle your parents and your grandparents might have envisioned, because you're living longer and you're healthier, because we have different foods, more people are exercising more. I think the main issue, Robert, when we talk about retirement, that most people who are looking towards this don't think about at all, is long-term care. Now, this is a really important issue for me, because from my research, I have found that many of us will spend $250,000 on health care after we retire. Medicare and your supplements are not going to cover it. Now, long-term care, we think of, oh, that's only for old people, but that's not true. If you have a younger person who's disabled for some reason, they can also tap in the policy. But because people are many times interested in trying to do it themselves, I think, I'll save some money doing it myself. What happens is they go on the internet and they take a look at what's available, and they end up usually purchasing what is the least expensive item out there that, hey, well, I've got something and it'll work. Well, I highly recommend to people that they do not do that on the internet. The policies are very confusing. You have to take a look at what are they actually covering. How long do you have to be disabled? Do you have to be disabled for 6 months before they give you any money? And when they eventually give you the money, what do they give you, $80 for 6 months? And then that's it? That's not going to work. And you're going to be overpaying for something that isn't going to do what you want it to do. Now, I compare it to basically having seatbelts in our car. Now, I know when I get in my car, if I don't put the seatbelt on, the bell starts ringing. And they've got it tuned to such an extent that it drives me crazy. Okay? So eventually, obviously, as I'm pulling out, I put the seatbelt on just to get rid of the bell. Okay. Now, actually, I look at long-term care in the same kind of way as an advisor and a fiduciary. If I come across somebody who's thinking about retirement and they don't have long-term care, a bell goes off in my head. And I talk to them about it, and we try to come up with some kind of a comprehensive plan where it's going to do what they needed to do. And it's one of these things that most of us have not been in an automobile accident, thank God, but we still put the seatbelt on. Well, this is the same thing with long-term care. There are many ways to take a look at it today. And I take my own advice. We want to buy it young, we want to buy it cheap, and we'd like to buy it lifetime because we never know. We know people that are disabled and been disabled for 15 years. And yet if you needed to bring people in yourself to just help get your food or get you organized, in today's world, we're talking about $100,000 a year. It's outrageous. Healthcare costs keep going up and they're exploding, as we all know. We take a look, and many of us, it's a double-edged sword. We're all living longer, which is great, which means we need health care insurance much longer. And as a result of that, there are more people on the health insurance books, and they need to make money to have a profit. So they're cutting down on what they pay and how much they pay. And those of us that are healthy, that occasionally need a medical intervention, find that we always have a co-payment for something, okay, if we want to go to our own doctor. So, or we want to do it our way and not the way that the insurance company wants. So this is going to continue. So when we talk about retirement, it isn't just about money. I mean, look, we can have plenty of money, but many people that have plenty of money are still interested in sending some eventually to their children or grandchildren. They're not looking forward to spending $250,000 on their own health care.
Yeah.
So the retirement for the average person out there is much more than just money. The holistic aspect and putting the financial seatbelts on so that no matter what happens, you've got enough so that you don't run out of money till you run out of time. And I plan people, one of the things that makes me different is my financial plans are made for people to live to be age 100. Okay. And I have some guaranteed products that will pay you an income whether you're 100 or 101.
I love that.
So this idea of planning for 10, 15 years, a waste of time and a waste of money.
Yeah. You gotta think about the longevity of it. I definitely agree with that part. That's why whether you're 20 or 45 or 50, the issues are the same. Obviously, if you have more time to put some in, then the question becomes, should I put money in a 401k, an IRA, a Roth 401k, a Roth IRA, my 457, I was a teacher, a 453B. I mean, it's not so much how much you should put in. The question that's more important is, should I be contributing to all of them? Or should I pick one or two that will be better for me in the long run and put money in there? The amount you can put in changes every year due to inflation and other government changes that take place.
So it's not about how much you should put in. It's more about what am I willing to put aside now. I'm sacrificing some of the things I would love to do. I'd love to go to this great restaurant and have this great dish that I love, but it's going to cost me $55. No, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to save the money and buy a pizza for tonight. Okay.
Yeah.
So we make those choices every single day, whether we're buying sneakers, whether we're belonging to a gym, where we live. Everything is, we're always thinking about, can I afford X, Y, and Z if I do this? But what am I going to have to give up? So we're always thinking in a financial sense, even when we're working, we're looking at our paycheck. Well, I'm paying more taxes now than I did. I'm living in New York. If I was living in Florida, I would have another 20% at the end of the year. Well, but I like New York and I like the hustle. Well, so that's what we're doing. We're paying for the certain things that are important to us at the time. And as we age, our choices many times will change. But our end goal, and that's why in this kind of a market with the volatility, which will probably continue, the people always say, what should I do at this point? I'm in the stock market. I've got all this volatility. And I tell people the DNA of the market is volatility. I tell them that on day one. You have to understand that. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when.
Yep.
This has happened before. It will happen again. The last thing you want to do is make a change in your current retirement plan, if that's what's important to you. You don't want to sell your stocks and go into CDs. CDs historically have not kept up with inflation. In order to keep up with inflation, as I said, looking at my parents and what my dad made for a living, in order to keep up so you can buy a house, buy a new car, buy an SUV. From what I understand recently, recent SUVs are selling for like $50,000. That's just for an automobile. I mean, that's more than some people make in a year.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I want to dive into another topic here with you, if you don't mind. I'm so sorry. I feel like you and I would be able to talk for hours, and I love that, but we don't have hours today. So I apologize. I want to make sure we kind of hit on all the really cool points about you, Nancy, because I was looking at so many different things about you and your business and the things that you have. And one of the cool things that I saw, obviously, that you mentioned was the Retirement Mirage, Time to Think Differently, which is basically your most recent book. It's available on Amazon. People should go check it out for sure. This book really talks about the Retirement Mirage as if like I guess you should explain it, but like I want to know more a little bit about the depths of this book and what kind of stories are in here that people can learn from. If you wouldn't mind just telling me a little bit about the book as well.
Well, the book talks about, as I mentioned at the beginning of our discussion, that retirement in the 21st century, because we're living longer, is completely different. And you need to be mentally involved in your whole life. You need to try not to get dementia and Alzheimer's. Part of doing that is for you to mentally keep your mind active. Being retired does not mean you sit down and watch television 15 hours a day or play golf every day. I mean, I like golf, but I don't have time to play as much as I'd like.
Golf will have you walking every day, which isn't a bad thing, right? So, I mean, that's some physical activity.
Yes,
no
but
matter
I mean,
what
you
age you
see
are.
people. Yes, you see people doing this, though. You know, they get retired. They have no reason to get up in the morning. And as a result, they end up not sleeping well at night because they're not physically or mentally active.
Yeah.
So that's why I encourage people, I talk about this in the book, I encourage you to keep your hobbies up, to try to stay socially active with your friends or make new friends or pick up new hobbies. Do things that will have a reason for you to get out of the house or the apartment or the condo and do things that are exciting. Don't wait. Yeah.
Is your book kind of a how-to book, or is there a path to, happy retirement in there? What kind of things are like?
Unfortunately, happiness is an individual scenario.
Understandable.
I think, you know what? I think if you're financially stable,
Yeah.
that you don't have to worry about money. That means you don't make choices. It doesn't mean you have more than enough money to do anything you want. It just means that you're comfortable with the money you have and you will take care of it.
Right,
and if you invest it appropriately, that's what I'm saying. You can't put it in CDs and think that's going to solve the problem. That's the one way to go down the drain, because you've got to pay taxes on the interest on the CDs. So no matter what they're giving you, it's not going to be that amount when you get it or when you keep it. Right. So it's more about staying invested. You have to keep up with inflation. You have to be diversified, and you have to mentally stay active. And you have to plan on that, which, as I said, because you're living longer, 65 is middle age. It's not retirement age.
Right.
All right. And that's the first thing. And that's why I said you have to work with a certified financial planner, not an insurance person who calls himself an advisor or herself an advisor. They don't have the need or the desire or the ability to pull in all the things that you need. It's like going to a medical internist when you're working with a CFP or in the sense that if that person can't solve the problem, they're going to send you to a different specialist. But they know enough to do the test to find out what it is you need for the next test to make sure you stay healthy. Well, as a CFP and fiduciary, I have these credentials. I am the specialist. And anyone else who's a CFP is also looking out for your best interest. They're not looking to sell you a product to make more money. They're and that's why it's important. And sometimes people, CFPs, charge by the hour. Sometimes they charge just on an annual basis. Whatever it is, it saves you money in the long run. I have no. It doesn't make any difference which way you pay. You're not going to go for nothing, but you'll make 3 times as much money working with a CFP than you will working with an insurance person or doing it on the internet.
Yeah, that makes sense. Well, let me give some shout outs for you, Nancy. So Nancy Hite, H-I-T-E is the correct spelling of your last name. The founder of strategicwealthadvisors.com. If you guys want to connect with her, go to her website. Also very active on LinkedIn. You can find Nancy Hite on LinkedIn. Go there. And then also check out the Amazon book, The Retirement Mirage. Look for that on Amazon. Tons and tons of knowledge here, and I love it. I wish we had more time, but we just don't. But I'm so happy we were able to connect and talk a little bit about some of this stuff. I definitely have some questions for you on my own personal situation, so I'll be looking for a really good CFP. Obviously, we want to talk to Nancy about some of these things, so if you guys are in this position in life where you're trying to figure out some of these financial struggles, please make sure you reach out. And Nancy, thank you so much for literally finding time for me, but all of your knowledge. I really do appreciate it.
Thank you, Robert. I wish you the best. Stay safe and stay healthy.
Thank you for listening to the show. Please take a minute to head over to www.savfair.com and subscribe to our publication.